Norman Osborn stood alone in his study, still breathing heavily. His hands trembled as he placed the green vial in the metal case. His fingers brushed the cold glass, eyes fixed on it with desperation that he turned, ready to head for the hidden elevator that led to his private lab. Then, a sharp, quick sting pierced the side of his neck that he blinked, confused. Reached up, but his hand was already numb, his vision blurred. He staggered once, then fell to the ground with a soft thud. Behind him, Lena stepped out of the shadows, lowering her wrist. The nanite armor covering her hand shifted back into stealth mode. She spoke softly into her comms. Target down. Non-lethal. Secure the serum. The two widows appeared from the hall a second later, stepping over Norman's unconscious body. Their black nanite armor shimmered faintly as it adjusted to the low light. They have already recovered all the necessary data and have bugged the place. One of them picked up the metal case from Norman's desk and opened it. Serum secured, she said. Lena nodded. Good. She walked over to the fireplace wall and scanned it. Hermes pinged a hidden panel behind the bookshelf. Hidden elevator detected. Biometric lock. Access granted. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, a small lift descended into darkness. The three widows stepped in. Secret underground lab. 30 seconds later, the doors opened to a cold lab. Blue lights flickered on. Rows of medical equipment lined the walls. Screens blinked with active data, but at the center of the room, there he was, Harry Osborn. He floated inside a vertical glass chamber, suspended in glowing blue liquid. Wires and tubes were connected to his chest and back. His eyes were closed. His face looked pale, but calm. Peaceful. The vitals were steady, but the screen showed frowny face. Severe cellular degeneration detected, critical stage. Lena stepped forward, silent. One of the widows scanned the computers. Everything's active. Norman was monitoring him constantly. The other widow had already placed a Stark data drive into the main terminal. Copying all files. Medical logs. DNA scans. Lab tests. Looks like Norman ran hundreds of simulations using some kind of mutation. None worked. Lena studied Harry through the glass. Doesn't matter. Tony wants both of them and he's going to get them. Pull him out of there. Some unknown times later, Norman Osborn slowly opened his eyes. His head throbbed. His throat was dry. Everything ached. He saw a door before his eyes and tried to run there, but something yanked at his neck. A sharp pull. Cold metal. Arg. He touched his neck. A thick metal collar was wrapped around his neck, connected to a chain bolted into the wall. Then he looked around. The walls were metal. Bare. No windows. Just one door. Out of his reach. He pulled at the chain, gritting his teeth. It didn't budge. What is this? He growled. Where the hell am I? He screamed. He cursed. He kicked at the floor, but no one came. After a few minutes, his breathing slowed. The pain in his head returned. His throat burned. Then, the door opened. Norman looked up. A young man walked in. He looked like he was in his early 20s, clean-shaven, sharp-eyed, and confident expression. He wore a simple blue shirt and jeans. His steps were calm. Relaxed. But his eyes, cold. Norman narrowed his eyes. Who the hell are you? The young man said nothing at first. He just looked at him, then he smiled, not a friendly smile, not a cruel one either, just calm. Controlled. You're awake, the man said. Good. Norman pulled at the collar again. You think this is funny? You don't know who you're messing with. The man tilted his head. Oh, I know exactly who I'm messing with. Norman's jaw clenched. Let me out of this thing right now, or I swear, or you'll do what? The man asked. Yell harder? Norman glared at him. Who are you? What do you want? The young man stepped closer. Just a little. Enough for Norman to get a better look at his face. There was something familiar about him. Something in the eyes, and then the man said, "We haven't met before. This is our first meeting and probably our last." He leaned in slightly, voice lower now. Colder. "You tried to kill my father. Rings a bell?" Norman's eyes widened. "What?" "Bomb." A hard punch to his gut. Norman coughed out in pain as his body flew back and crashed on the metal wall before tumbling onto the floor. He coughed violently, wheezing as air finally filled his lungs again. His mind reeled, not just from the pain, but from what the stranger had said. Your father," he rasped, wiping blood from his mouth. His voice cracked. "Who the hell are you?" The young man stepped forward slowly, not in armor.no suit, just cold, simmering rage, the kind that didn't need power to be dangerous. That he crouched down in front of Norman, resting his forearm on his knee, looking him in the eye. There was no cruelty in his expression. No pleasure. Just focus. Calculation. "You ordered the hit on Howard Stark," Tony said calmly. "You planned to steal the symbiote. You tried to kill my father, kill Peggy Carter, frame Fury, and replace the World Security Council with puppets. I've seen every file. Every comm line. Every backdoor payment funneled through Oscorp's shell accounts. You even hired assassins to clean up after your failures." Norman's eyes were wide now. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. "You really think you can do this and get away with it?" he snapped, forcing his voice back into its usual venom. "You're just a kid playing at power. You have no idea." Bang! He grabbed Norman's hair and slammed his face on the floor. "Do you?" He slammed once again and again. 4 times in a row before standing up. "Anthony Stark. The one who disappeared from the limelight years ago," Norman mumbled in his slurry voice as blood gushed out of his mouth, forehead, scrubbed skin, and broken nose. Well, his face was a bloody mess. "Wow. You can speak in your situation. Call me impressed. Well, since you tried to kill my dad and missed. Now, I think I should return the favor, right? Oh, and trust me. I will do it point blank. I won't miss," Tony said as he walked to the left wall and gave a nod. The metal door shifted, revealing Harry, floating in a circular tank. Norman's entire demeanor shattered, all the rage, the arrogance, the snarl in his voice were gone and replaced by sheer, unfiltered panic. "Harry, no, no, no. Don't touch him." Tony didn't look at Norman. He stepped toward the tank. The lights inside glowed a soft blue, highlighting Harry's face, the frail outline of his body, and the web of medical wires trailing from his chest. Tony just stood there for a moment, watching. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled something out. A vial, the golden liquid inside shimmered like sunlight trapped in a bottle. Even from across the room, Norman felt it. The weight of hope. Of salvation. His eyes widened. No, wait, what is that?" Tony turned, holding the vial between 2 fingers. "This," he said calmly, "is a stabilized genetic restorative. Fully synthetic. Nanite-enhanced cellular regeneration. It doesn't just slow down deterioration, it reverses it. Rewrites it." He looked at the serum for a second. It could save him. Not just buy time, cure him. Norman's heart stopped. "Give it to him," he whispered. Then louder. "Give it to him. Please, I'll do anything. Don't let him die." Tony raised an eyebrow. "Anything?" Norman dropped to his knees. "Yes. Anything, everything. I'll shut down Oscorp, I'll confess, I'll go public, testify before the council. I'll give you every dirty secret I've ever kept. Just, please, don't let him die." Tony looked down at the vial, then at Norman. His face was unreadable. Then he slowly crouched down, and placed the vial on the floor between them. Norman stared at it like it was a divine relic that he moved toward it. His arms trembling, crawling, and then, crack. Tony's boot came down on the vial, golden liquid exploded across the floor in a sparkling splash. It hissed against the metal, steam rising. Gone. Useless. Destroyed. Norman froze, silent, like he'd been shot in the heart. That he didn't speak. Couldn't. His hand reached toward the puddle, trembling violently. Tony leaned down, his voice low and cutting. You don't get to beg. Not after what you did. Not after what you tried to do. Norman's voice finally broke through, shaking, gasping. You. Why? Tony scoffed. Why? Why should I help a murderer's son? I have seen the inhumane shit you did. The number of people you killed. The way you extracted that kid's mutation, blood, bone marrow, and spinal fluids. He was alive. Yet, he refused to scream. He refused to give up even in his last moment. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. How many people lost their families because of you and your obsession? You don't even know, do you? Well, I guess, you can call it karma. Yeah. Let's call it your karma. Norman looked up, eyes wild. He's just a boy. No, Tony said coldly. He's your boy. He stepped back. You think I'm going to save him? Let him live? Let him grow up hating me for this? You think I'm going to risk him becoming another version of you? He shook his head. No. I'm not leaving this one behind to grow up and come for me later. Norman tried to stand, but his legs failed him. He collapsed to the floor, eyes wide with horror. Please, he whispered. Don't kill him. Don't, please, he's all I have. Tony didn't respond. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. He just turned and walked away from the shattered vial. You'll stay there and watch your son die, before your eyes, little by little. Good luck. And behind him, the sound of a father sobbing into the remains of his sins. The door closed with a loud bang. Outside the holding cell, Yelena waited. She'd been listening the whole time. As Tony stepped out and the door slid shut behind him, she asked, so what now? Want me to finish it? Tony didn't answer at first, then, quietly, no. She raised an eyebrow. You're not going to kill him? I am, Tony said. Just not yet. There was a moment of silence between them, so. That was dark, Tony, Yelena said, patting his shoulder. You already gave the serum to the boy, so, why did you do that? You could have just tortured him for days and then killed him. Where's the fun in that? Tony smiled. I want Norman's live confession. And before you say anything about using AI to create a fake, live sounds much better, and right now, Norman is suffering a torture 1,000 times worse than any physical torture. Let him suffer a bit and keep an eye on him. We need him alive. Tony stepped into his room, finally looking for a moment of peace. Instead, a fist came flying at his face. His reflexes kicked in. He caught the wrist mid-air, twisted, and spun his attacker toward the wall, pinning them with a grin already forming on his face. He made sure to hold back. Well, hello to you too, he said. Natasha looked up at him with a smirk. Her hair was tied back, her eyes sharp, and her form was still lethal despite her now unenhanced body. I knock. You dodge. We talk. That's how this works, right? She quipped, kneeing him lightly in the thigh. Tony grunted, pulled her back, and they shifted into a blur of movement. She ducked under his arm, swept his legs, and he landed hard on the floor with a thud. He laughed, even while flat on his back. You got a lot to learn, Mr. Stark. You're enjoying this, he said, still catching his breath. Natasha stepped over him and held out her hand. A little. You've been avoiding me. Was Yelena really that fun to hang out with? Her voice had a hint of jealousy, and Tony understood why. He grabbed her hand and yanked her down on top of him, flipping her in the process. Jealousy looks good on you, he teased, brushing a strand of red hair from her face. Her eyes narrowed playfully. You've been holed up with Yelena and Melina for days. Training, planning, plotting. Not even a little peek into my room. We live on the same island. Tony raised an eyebrow. So, this is you being mad? No. This is me being annoyed. Mad would have left bruises. Annoyed, huh? Good to know. So when you nearly dislocated my shoulder 5 seconds ago, that was just foreplay? Natasha rolled her eyes. Please. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd be on a stretcher talking through a feeding tube. She moved to roll off him, but Tony flipped her again, landing softly on top this time, careful not to put weight on her. I'm just saying, he said with mock seriousness, you do tend to get a little stabby when you feel ignored. Oh, poor billionaire genius feels attacked by the girl he ghosted all week? Natasha replied sweetly, jabbing 2 fingers into a pressure point in his side. Ugh. Tony yelped and rolled off. Okay, wow, that was rude. That was a cheap shot. She stood and dusted herself off, smug. That was restraint. I could have gone for the spleen. He sat up and grinned. I like my spleen. It keeps the rest of me company. Tony got to his feet, brushing imaginary dust off his shirt with dramatic flair. So what now? We spar, flirt, and pretend we're not emotionally constipated adults avoiding a real conversation? Natasha cracked her neck. Exactly. She lunged again. But this time not to strike but to feint. Tony leaned back with a cocky smile, but her foot swept toward his ankle. He jumped just in time. Okay, so we're doing this, he said, circling her. Cool, cool. Just remember, you break it, you buy it. I already own half your dignity, Stark. Oh, that's all I had left? He ducked a jab, spun around, and flicked her forehead mid-dodge. My mistake. Natasha blinked, stunned for a beat. Did you just flick me? Precision attack. Critical damage. He waggled his fingers like a magician. Your ego might not survive the next one. Oh, you're dead. She pounced. This time she grabbed his arm, twisted it behind his back, and kicked his knee just enough to send him stumbling. She was very good at hitting pressure points. Despite his evolved body, Tony felt the sting that he caught himself on the wall, laughing. Wow. Okay. That's some grudge you're holding. I didn't not visit you out of spite, you know. You're Tony Stark. If you avoid someone, it's either strategic, or you're scared. He tilted his head. I am never scared. She smirked. Then it was strategic. Which means you're avoiding me because of, what? Feelings? Tony paused, hands raised in surrender. Okay, you want honesty? You terrify me. Not because you're beautiful, not because you used to be enhanced, and definitely not because you keep threatening my spleen, she raised an eyebrow. Then what? Because I like you, he said simply. And liking you usually ends with me emotionally unstable and horny. I keep remembering that little moment we had back in Malibu. It gets in the way of my work. There was a moment of quiet, then Natasha stepped forward, grabbed the collar of his shirt, and gently headbutted him in the chest. Idiot. Hey. That's not how normal people respond to heartfelt confessions. I'm not normal, she said. And you've been gone all week without saying a word. Training, building, saving the world. Great. But I'm not furniture, Tony. I don't sit quietly and collect dust. He smiled softly. You're right. You're more like a dangerous house cat. Always judging me from the shadows. And occasionally clawing your face. Exactly. She smirked. Then her knee shot up again. Tony barely twisted away in time. Okay, okay. Truce, truce, he said, laughing. You win. I hereby swear to make time in my busy schedule of world saving to pay attention to the terrifying redhead. Natasha crossed her arms. And? Anne. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. I'll stop ghosting you. Even if it means you'll punch me in the kidneys once a week as a bonding ritual. She grinned. Twice a week. Minimum. Plus, a couple of kisses with cuddles. He held out a hand. Deal. Cuddles and kisses. I can work with that. She slapped it away. Let's spar first. I want to see what my sister taught you. Then we'll talk about deals. Tony sighed, mock dramatic. You know, most people just talk over coffee. Yeah, well. I'm not most people. Then she smiled and charged. Tony braced. God, I missed you. Outside Tony's room, moments later, Yelena stood with the food tray in hand. She cooked grilled chicken, rice, and gravy, and made one of those ridiculous mango smoothies Tony pretended not to like but finished every time. It was supposed to be their daily ritual. Lunch. Sarcasm. Strategy talk. Sometimes silence, sometimes bickering. Always comfortable, but today, the sounds coming from behind the door weren't comfortable, they were flirting. Teasing. Familiar in a way that hit too hard. Yelena frowned and shifted the tray. She wasn't eavesdropping, not on purpose. But the voices carried. The laughter. The jabs. And then, a kiss, and not just a kiss. She peeked through the window, just a glance. A bad idea. A moment she couldn't unsee. Natasha, straddling Tony on the mat, his hand shamelessly sliding over her backside and squeezing her butt cheeks. Her lips were on his. Natasha was kissing hard while grinding her hips on his crotch. Yelena froze, something twisted in her chest. Jealousy, she'd felt that before. With Natasha, it was practically their rivalry during the Red Room days. They fought over who fought better, who got the mission, who made the kill shot. But this wasn't a rivalry. This wasn't competition. This hurt, and she didn't even know why. She backed away, silent and quick. A widow through and through. By the time she hit the hallway corner, her expression was blank. Professional. The tray was still in hand, the smoothie shaking slightly as her grip tightened. She didn't drop it, she didn't let the crack show, but inside was a storm she didn't understand. Yelena never needed anyone, never wanted to. So why did this feel like a betrayal? Training deck. 10 minutes later, Yelena slammed a combat drone into the wall with enough force to crack its frame. The mechanical arm sparked and sputtered as it dropped, twitching. Another drone tried to flank her. She pivoted, elbowed it hard enough to cave in the sensor array, then drove a knee into its core. She didn't stop. Didn't breathe, just kept moving. Hitting. Breaking, each strike sharper. Faster. Filled with too much power. Why does it matter? Why the hell does it matter? He's Tony. He's Tony and she's Natasha. You knew this could happen. I should have given proper hints. Maybe I should have. I don't know. Be a little more forceful or clingy. Arg. What's the point of thinking about that now? But she hadn't felt it until now, that invisible thread, the one that tugged tighter every time he brought her breakfast when she overslept. Or when he sat beside her during strategy briefings and muttered dumb jokes under his breath just to make her smirk. Or when he built her a custom gauntlet without being asked, just because she hated the old one that he saw her, and maybe she thought, maybe she hoped that she wasn't just another widow to him. The next drone surged forward. Yelena didn't dodge, she ripped it in half, metal clattered to the floor. She stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched, and then the door opened behind her. Whoa, Tony's voice said lightly. You trying to break my entire drone squad today or just the ones with feelings? Yelena didn't turn around. Didn't know they had any. Like their creator. Tony blinked. Okay, wow. Rude. I brought mango smoothies. She still didn't look at him. Give it to Natasha. She seems to like your offerings. Tony narrowed his eyes. Okay. What the hell's going on? Nothing, she said flatly, brushing past him toward the exit. I just needed to hit something. Tony grabbed her wrist gently, pulling her back. Hey. Talk to me. She yanked free, her glare sharp. Don't worry, Tony. I'm not jealous. Jealous, he repeated, confused. Of what?